Moving right along. Back to the story. And he turned from him toward another and spake after the same manner, and the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine.
Servant?
David is speaking of himself, thy servant. He's saying,
I am servant of God.
Oh, he's also the servant of his brothers.
Why?
Well, because he's coming to set them free from the reproach of the Philistines. To overcome Goliath, he's helping his brothers. That's why he says, and David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. So when we think of people who are still in bondage in religion, we don't see them as our enemies. We're here to serve them and to love them, to help them, and to help them overcome the cranky crock, the sinful nature, the reproach of the Philistines. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go up against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth.
What does that mean?
That one means that the scribes and the wise men and the soothsayers and the elders and the pastors and the religious leaders of today, they just tell us, you can't do it. It's impossible. Don't even try to overcome that sinful nature.
We can.
But we can. We know we can.
God knows.
Because the Christ is coming, isn't he? He's going to rise in us and overcome that kingdom of sin and darkness. Sin and darkness overcome by the blood of the Lamb. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. What does that one mean? It means David has had practice. The lions and the bears, they represent lies, deceptions, false doctrines, blinded eyes. But David has had practice, even while he was tending the sheep, at overcoming these messengers of darkness. So he's practiced. God's been exercising him, teaching him his ways. He's ready. He's ready to go and fight Goliath. And David said, Moreover, the Lord, it wasn't me, but the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine. God was faithful in the past. Do you think he's going to forsake you when the big one comes up? No. No, he won't. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armour. Saul's trying to put on David all of the things that he's used to protect himself against his enemies, but they're a vain hope.
What does that mean?
That means they're lies and deceptions, and vanity is something that makes man proud, and also it's very pointless.
What does that mean?
It's futile. It doesn't achieve anything. It's a waste of time. Back to the story. David said, Moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armour, and he put on an helmet of brass upon his head. He also armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armour, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. So he didn't want to go because he had not proved it, which means he hasn't tested this thinking, these doctrines, this stuff that Saul was trying to foist upon him. He hadn't tested it, so he wasn't going to go out and fight with those kinds of beliefs. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David. And the man that bare the shield went before him. Wow, who is that? And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. Perhaps that is saying that there is a man with a shield also around David.
Who is that? What is that?
The Holy Spirit is protecting him. Goliath had a shield. He had a man with a piece of steel that he was using to protect himself against his opponent. But David had the Holy Spirit, went forth in power and in truth. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy, and of fair countenance. And this is saying that only the children may come into the kingdom of heaven. Jesus says we must become like children, a youth.
Why did they come into children?
Well, children have wonderful imaginations. Their imagination hasn't dried up yet. We have to become like children again. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog, that thou comest to me with staves?
Why Goliath thinks he's a dog?
Well, he's saying to David, and anyone else who's there to hear, and he's got a loud voice, so he's saying it to everybody. You think that I am able to be killed by this boy, like a man might kill a dog? Is that all I am? Goliath is overconfident. He thinks that this battle is in the bag. But it's not in Goliath's bag. It's in David's bag. It's in his sling. So Goliath is overconfident. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field. He's going to say, your nature is going to be bent.
What does that mean?
Oh, sinful nature upon us, so that we can't escape from it. Goliath is saying you're going to be bent towards the fowls of the air, which is lies and deception, and to the beasts of the field, which is the carnal nature. Then David said unto the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day the Lord will deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcass of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all the assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose, and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine, and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David.